So let's talk about why a divorce or a breakup or a separation hits a man differently than it hits a woman. As many of you guys know, when a woman's unhappy with a relationship, everybody, including you, knows about it. And she goes to a lot of lengths to try to fix the relationship. She'll offer to go to counseling. She'll constantly want to talk about how she's feeling. And most men do want to be in a situation where they make her happy, so they do attempt to change in order to make her happy. But what ends up happening is those changes continuously revert back into the habits and into the behaviors that made her unhappy to begin with. But after this cycle goes on over and over again, a woman eventually gets to a point where she checks out, because she's tired of coming to you and having the same conversation over and over again, with it continuously reverting back to the way that it was before. And so what happens is a woman starts to become silent. Now, from your perspective, when the woman's silent, you think to yourself, oh, wow, this is wonderful. This is great. No longer complaining. She's just okay with the way things are. Because men will silently suffer. And basically, when a man silently suffers, what he does is he just puts his head down and he puts his own needs and his own wants on the back burner, basically. And he just goes about life complacent. He's unhappy, and eventually his unhappiness shifts into being content. And he's okay with that, because logically, it doesn't make sense for him to end a relationship because things aren't perfect. Because from the man's point of view, he can logically look at the situation and say to himself, hey, you know what? Logistically, it doesn't make sense to split up all the finances. It doesn't make sense to split up the kids. It doesn't make sense to do all of that because the grass isn't always greener. So I'm just going to put my head down and I'm going to accept and I'm going to adapt to the way things are. And so because a man operates that way, he presumes and assumes incorrectly that a woman operates that way as well. So when a woman becomes silent, from the man's perspective, she's content. But I'm going to say something to you guys loud and clear. Women hate being content. And you know what we hate even more than being content? Complacency. A woman hates it. So basically, when a woman goes silent, what's happening instead, because she's not acting the way you think she's acting, she hasn't just come to terms with how things are, she hasn't decided to stop bitch moaning and complaining about it. Instead, a woman starts planning her escape from the relationship. She'll start figuring out what she can afford on her own. Where can she move to? Where can you move to? How can she split time with the kids? She actually will actively start planning how to logistically split everything up and leave the relationship. And that's why the relationship hits you differently than it hits her, because from her perspective, she's been unhappy for a very long time and she's started to make the plans because she can't emotionally handle it anymore. But from your perspective, you were living in this logical state. And so when she comes to you and she finally says to you, hey, look, it's done, it's over, I'm moving out, this is how it's going to be, all of a sudden, your logic's out the window and your nervous system kicks in. It's like the survival nervous system. There's a threat. Your brain starts to recognize that there's a threat to your attachment and to your survival. And when that starts to happen, your nervous system flips that into 4 response mechanisms. And what those 4 responses are is their fight, their flight, freeze, and fawn. And really quick, let me just describe what each of them look like. So if you go into fight response, that looks like you being angry, or you argue, or you get really defensive, or you start chasing after her. If you go into the flight mode, what that basically looks like is you're really trying to problem solve. You start obsessively thinking about every single thing that you could have done or you should have done. And you start thinking, how can I fix this? If you go into freeze mode, that's basically where you shut down. You can't even handle it and you start to disassociate yourself and you're not really capable of moving forward or doing anything at all. And then the last one is if you fawn. And what fawning looks like is when you start begging, you start saying things like, I'll do anything, please just give me another chance. You start trying to people please, you start trying to go out of your way to do everything that you think that she might want in order to save the relationship. So that's the nervous system taking over in you. And that's why oftentimes guys will say, I can't believe I acted that way, or I was acting really out of character and I don't know why. Well, it's because the logical part of your brain started to drop off and this nervous system started to kick in and you went into survival mode. So that's why it's hitting you differently, is because you're in this survival mode that you've got to do what you got to do to save the relationship. So what's important is when this is happening, you guys got to start regulating yourself again. And you have to realize that that's why it feels calming when you're contacting her, and why not contacting her in the distance feels so threatening to you. The real issue is not the reaction, it's just the nervous system is in survival mode. You want to stop the habit of needing her reactions to regulate your emotions, and instead you want to learn how to regulate your emotions on your own. Because right now, guys, your job is not to convince or to beg or to persuade. Your job is to re-anchor yourself internally. You want your next move to come from being stable, not from survival mode. Because you're not going to be able to reconnect and rebuild the relationship from survival mode. The only way you're going to be able to rebuild the relationship in an effective way is if you can do so with your emotions being regulated and being in check. Because when you continue to have that fight and flight and freeze and fawn reactions, when you continue to do that, you start to cause her to have her own nervous system reactions. And then even worse, what you cause is you cause her to start losing respect for you. Because oftentimes, guys, the woman does not leave the relationship because she lost respect for you. She leaves the relationship because emotionally she just can't do it anymore. She's so emotionally unfulfilled that she feels like she can't breathe anymore. So she doesn't leave the relationship because she doesn't love you. I mean, in some cases she gets to a point where she can't stand you, but in most cases she leaves because it's the only thing she can do to continue breathing, because emotionally she can't do it anymore. So when she's at that point, she hasn't lost respect for you. But when you guys continue with these reactions, you do cause her to start to lose respect for you. That's the one thing you don't want to do. You don't want a woman to start to feel sorry for you or feel bad for you or get the ick factor because you're begging like a little boy. You don't want her to feel that way about you. And so even though those reactions are the nervous system kicking in, you really want to regulate that, because the last thing you want is for her to lose respect for you, because you cannot rebuild a relationship if she's lost respect for you. You can absolutely rebuild a relationship if she's feeling emotionally like she can't breathe, because once the pressure's been released from her, she'll be able to reopen herself to you again. But you're not going to be able to rebuild a relationship if she's lost respect for you. So if you've done that, guys, if you've done the fight or the flight or the freeze or the fawn, leave me a comment and let me know. It doesn't mean that there's no chance if you have done it. I'm just saying, hey guys, take a step back, breathe, stop reacting that way so you can really get to the root cause of why the relationship ended, so you can really get the best chance at rebuilding the relationship. And if you are serious about rebuilding your relationship, definitely check out my free masterclass, the 5-step system to resetting your love communication style to rebuild your relationship. So definitely go ahead and check that out. I hope this video was helpful, guys. If so, definitely hit it a like and subscribe to the channel for more videos like it. And as always, stay happy, stay healthy, and let's really focus on falling back in love.